is Sterile. I'm your host, Justina Downs. Today I have a guest speaker, Breanna Paul, lead sterile processing technician out of Wyoming. Today we're going to be discussing robotic instruments in the sterile processing department. Breanna, thank you for joining me today.
Yes, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in sterile processing?
Yeah, I can do that. So my name is Breanna Paul, and I live in Casper, Wyoming. I have been in sterile processing for a little over 10 years now. I started downtown at our trauma center, and I was there for about 8 years. And then I switched over to the lead position that I'm in now at um, it's kind of a smaller surgical hospital. But we're in the process of actually, I think, probably converting to more of a trauma kind of hospital in the next couple of years. Um, so yeah, yeah,
So you guys work on robotics there, like the instruments there, because I know not all hospitals do, depending on the sizing.
yeah. So at both places that I've worked, we each had the Da Vinci robot in particular. Downtown, we had the first version, which I believe was like the Da Vinci S. It had like little blue parts on the arms. And then that hospital had upgraded to the XI. And so I worked with that quite a bit. And then over at the facility that I'm at now, we brought the XI from kind of like our sister hospital, I guess you could say, in a town that's about an hour away. It got moved over to our facility, so I'm kind of back reprocessing them.
Oh, nice. Would you say there's any advantages or disadvantages of cleaning robotic instruments compared to the regular instruments?
Well, it kind of seems like there's probably more disadvantages than advantages from like a sterile processing person point of view. They are very difficult to clean and make sure that you have everything clean because the arms are so long and they're all cannulated like on the inside. It has the wires and stuff that are inside the little tubes and the box part that the controller and everything that's kind of in there. And we can't ever see that with our eyes. So we have to trust that our process and the OR's pre-cleaning and everything that we have in place, we have to trust that that's really working. So we have to kind of follow everything, um, to the T to make sure that you're getting everything done. So that's kind of a disadvantage. Um, I don't know if there's really any advantages besides the fact, that you kind of get to learn something different and something new, and that's always fun, I think.
Yeah. So what do you do if like the OR doesn't do the pre-cleaning or keeping those arms on the inside or tips moist before sending it to you guys?
So it kind of depends if this case carts and the instruments are coming back sooner than later, then hopefully the cleaning process can go fairly smooth still. Um, if anything, you can soak them for longer. So the manufacturer's IFUs, you state that you have to, like, before you start any kind of cleaning and stuff, you want to soak them for 30 minutes in the enzymatic prepped water. So, like, you can fill up even like a basin on the side or one of your sink basins, fill it up like you would any other, like you're getting ready to clean any other instruments. Fill it up, and then you have to prime each port of the arms with 35 milliliters of the enzymatic water that you have, and then you just let them sit in there and soak. The only exception is the robotic scope that they have, like a 0 degree or the 30-degree scope. And those only soak for about 15 minutes. And they don't really have a whole lot of crazy channels on the inside. It's just, the scope. So there's not really too many kind of crazy parts. So that's a little easier to deal with. But yeah, like with the arms, let them soak for the 30 minutes. If you're scrubbing on the tips and you're not really getting anything out, or if it's not really coming clean and you're still getting kind of like little chunks that come out, you can drain your water and refill your sink. Um, if you have to flush the ports before they go into the sonic. So if you're uh, flushing those and you're still getting, like chunks maybe that fly out every now and then, you can soak it longer. You can also sonic it, a couple more times instead of just doing it once. So, like if you're flushing it and you're not seeing any kind of debris coming out, and whatever makes you feel better. But with that, the sonic can take probably an hour is probably the rough estimate of how long that sonic cycle takes. So, um, if you have a sonic that has like a disinfection cycle on it, then I think that's like an hour, hour and a half roughly, depending on whichever sonic that you have. Um, and then like the sonic that I have right now, it doesn't have the disinfection cycle, but it still runs about an hour. So then you'd have to put it in the 4x4 washers because you have to have that disinfection cycle on there. And that adds like another 20 minutes. So if they aren't doing pre-cleaning nonetheless, you could be adding on hours upon hours potentially to trying to reprocess those and get them clean.
Yeah.
So
Do you guys have any kind of inspection process where you guys are putting like little tiny cameras through those lumens to kind of see the inside, like, or where where you're trying to drain
where
out?
the cables and stuff are.
Yeah.
I don't know personally if there's like little camera, there are like little bore scopes that you can use for other instruments, but I don't believe there's anything for the arms themselves. You just kind of have to, I mean, really rely just on the processes that are in place and really make sure that you're following them is the best that you can do. Um, and I don't know if the robot itself, like when you plug in the arms, it tracks like the life of the arm and everything because they're only used so many times depending on whichever instrument arm that you have. Um, so I don't know if like the robot would be able to detect anything like that. If it isn't working smoothly as well. Like if the arm isn't moving as smoothly, the doctor could probably reject it as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, otherwise, just our inspection process, you soak it and you're looking for the debris. You want to make sure it's all cleaned off of there. Um, you're flushing it, like manually flushing it before it goes into the sonic. And then when it comes out, you can do like a critical water rinse on those as well. So that's kind of another inspection point. And then a lot more of the inspection process happens on the prep and pack side. So you have to like dry the arms fully on the prep side. They have little lubrication spots. So the tips where the cables are actually exposed, you put just like a drop or two of the lubrication. Usually it's like from Aesculap or I'm sure Da Vinci or Intuitive themselves has some that you can get. But you just put that on there and then just kind of wiggle it around. So you're looking for like any frayed cables that might be on there. If there was debris that was left over that you can see, anything that doesn't feel right, if a scissor is like nicked, just kind of like basic, looking inspection and stuff on the prep side.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
then how do you clean those monopolar scissors without damaging them?
yeah, so those ones are kind of tricky because they do have like the cautery that's with them as well. So whenever they're cutting, it's also cauterizing. So the tissue and the blood and everything gets burned on them. And from Da Vinci themselves in the IFU, you're not supposed to use like any kind of extra abrasives or anything to try to get that like charred stuff off of there, charred bioburden and whatever else is on there because it actually dulls the scissors. And, that's definitely not good because you don't want to have a scissor that's in a patient, snagging and stuff. So the best way to really do that is just take like a nylon brush that's kind of soft, not super abrasive or anything, and you're just gonna, scrub all of that off as best as you can. Maybe even like go over it once, let it soak a little bit more, go over it again. But the rep, when we had gotten our Da Vinci, he said that it was absolutely okay to still have some of that on there. And he knew that, like, it sounds super weird and it kind of sounds gross because that's not really what we're taught. You want to get all of that stuff off. But the fact that it actually damages the scissors, you just can't do that. Um, but it is okay if you can't get it all off, just as long as there aren't, like really big, obnoxious chunks or something on there or, that kind of stuff. It's fine. And that's from the company themselves. So
But
you
then
just
how
put,
do you determine if you need to like get rid of them or not?
like, get rid of the marks on there.
Or the instrument itself, like, like to get a new one if
Oh, okay. Yeah.
if it looks like it's like building up with that char.
Yeah. So if it gets too bad, which I don't, I've never really seen them get super, super bad. And of course, in the very beginning, when I had first kind of started with them, we were using that stuff to take that, like a Miltex remover, for example. It's kind of like an abrasive powder. And you can put that on there and just kind of rub it, and it starts taking off all that stuff. And we were using those in the beginning till we figured out that you really shouldn't. But otherwise, I want to say the scissor itself has about, I think it's 20 uses. So, there's only the 20 times that it can be used. That is tracked on the robot itself. So every time that that arm is plugged in and used, it like tallies it somehow. I haven't really seen it personally, but it does keep track of how many times it's used. And then when it's at its last life or it uses up its last life, there's a little dot indicator um, that's on the arm, and it'll go to red. And so that's an indicator for everyone, oh, okay, well, we can't use this anymore. So the OR can throw it away, or the sterile processing department can throw it away. And if for some reason it did get back like into circulation still, and they plugged it into the robot to use it, the robot would reject it itself because it's already used its lives. That's kind of like, computer technology thing or whatever that it's got going on. Um, but if you don't want to use it before the lives are up, um, the doctor could probably be a really good one. If they're feeling like it's not cutting or not doing something properly, they can take it out and, send a note back being like, hey, this isn't working. Um, let's see, if sterile processing themselves feels like, they aren't properly cleaning it or something isn't okay, you could always kind of like save that arm and maybe talk to your rep, have your rep come in and examine it, inspect it. Maybe they can like plug it in on the robot and kind of play with it for a minute and see what they think as well. Um, And then, like, if you don't have a representative, I think you can talk with the company themselves and you can send out that product. And if there is like a defect with it or they can't use it, depending on how many lives are left, I think they can reimburse you for that. I know we've kind of done stuff like that in the past where like the arm completely had some weird defect or whatever. You contact the company, send it in, and then they can send you a replacement.
Even if it was like 19 uses.
Yeah.
How do you remember the where you would like lubricate all the spots, like the arm, including the
Okay.
stapler?
So for the arms themselves, it's, I mean, they're pretty simple, so it's kind of fairly self-explanatory. Um, there's the only lubrication spots are on the tip, and it's just where the cables are, so where the tips kind of bend. So since there's so few, it's pretty good to like just remember. Otherwise, DaVinci has like a little login portal that you can log into, and they have insanely awesome like educational and training videos. So definitely like going over those constantly is really good. Um, you can have like a little link if you have computers like at your workstation or something, have like a little link for like quick reference. You can like click on it and bring it up while you're doing the Da Vinci and you can watch it and follow along with the videos. That one is really good if you have like the big old robotic stapler arm. Those can be a pain because I believe they have like 8 to 10 lubrication ports. Um, I've only dealt with them in the past. I'm not currently dealing with them. We don't have them right now. But they do have, like I said, like 8 different ports. And that was one that I kept a quick link like on my computer desktop. So if I ever had that one, I'd bring that up and just load up the video and then follow along with the video. And if they're doing this port, then I would do that port, just follow along, do them all, wiggle it around, and then it be done. And it was super easy, and that little shortcut definitely helped because then you didn't have to, log in, try to search for the video or, anything like that. So I feel like that's really efficient to remember all of those parts and stuff.
Yeah, did you say you were at a hospital that had um besides Da Vinci, like another brand as well, or another robotics?
Yeah, so it's not really like the same robot kind of thing where the robot is basically doing all of the surgery. But it's kind of like a type of robot is how I'm understanding it. So um, there's like the DePuy ortho line, which is a little box, but it goes on like the tibia and it helps with total knees. And they also have one for total hips, but I'm not sure how that one works. But it's just a little box and it helps so the doctor can make more precise cuts to replace that joint. Um, and like I said, that one's just like a little box that attaches to your tibia. But the Rosa from Zimmer Biomet, that one is actually, I think, like 2 different machines. And it had like, so you have one machine that doesn't really touch the patient or interact with the patient, and then another one that kind of does. And the instruments, they have like these little blue pieces that connect to them that are sterile. And there's little, I don't really know how to explain this very well, but it's like kind of a RFID kind of looking thing, but nonetheless, the computer that's not touching the patient can read the little markings and stuff on the instruments. So the doctor goes around and there's like certain touch points that they have to do. And it like somehow it measures and does all this crazy math stuff or whatever, and it maps out like all of your bones on your knee and like cut points and stuff, and like it's really kind of crazy. um and now, yeah, like it's really really cool, and it kind of does the same thing as like the ortho line where you're just getting way more precise cuts, for the total knees, and the heal time is a lot better because the doctors aren't really guessing so much. It's like way way more precise. So it is really, really cool. But there aren't like any really big arms or anything like that. But it's still kind of like a robotic system that I've seen, I guess.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be like the hardest thing you've learned in sterile processing?
In general, or like about robots,
In
like
general,
in general.
just in general. Yeah.
Um,
Something if you wanted to tell a student, just letting you know.
well, yeah. So you are definitely not going to learn everything in one day. You're not going to learn everything in a week. You're not going to learn everything in a year. You're not going to learn everything in 5 years. Um, Definitely keep your mind open and like always want to just keep learning and take the criticism. Don't take it as people are just trying to be mean or nitpicky or anything like that. Just any kind of information, any kind of different ways that people do things that might be different than you, you know, like just, I don't know, soak it all in. And if you want to find your own way to do things, but I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, I guess, but you know, yeah, yeah, of course, follow the IFUs, definitely. Because that's going to be, like pounded into your brain by any kind of question people can ask. Well, look at the IFUs first, you know. Um, and then, I mean, if anything, just do the right thing all the time. Don't cut steps. Um, Something that I've kind of been thinking about recently too is, you want to be really efficient. So it's good to try to find, quicker ways to do things, but you don't want to cut corners, of course. Um, and then if you're ever feeling like cutting corners, or you're like, it's the end of the night, it's the last case, all I have to do is wash this and go home. So, you're like, I want to skip that step because, then I can get out of here 15 minutes earlier or something like that. If you just stop for a minute and think, well, if I skip this step, I am treating that next patient differently than when I was here at the beginning of my shift and I was following everything properly. And you don't know who that next patient is going to be. Like it could be your mom, it could be your daughter, your sister, your grandma, your grandpa. So, like you don't know who's going to end up being on that table with the instruments that you're processing. And, if you're a big family person, even if you're not a big family person, I mean, that still kind of it hits close because it could even be you on the table. So, like, I don't know, you just want to do the best that you can for the patient. And, yeah. I'm pretty passionate about it. I want to try to protect people and do the best that I can do. We don't really get a lot of credit for being in sterile processing, even though I do feel like we're probably the most important department of the hospital, because really you wouldn't have a hospital without sterile processing.
Yeah. You guys are like the people behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that is like great advice, especially for new students and myself.
Yeah.
I know when I first opened up the book, I was kind of like, I am so overwhelmed and I don't know how I'm going to memorize all
Oh,
this stuff.
yeah. It's definitely tough. Um, and it's definitely awesome because you said you're going to like doing school and stuff for this, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So I didn't get that opportunity. Um, so it's really cool that you can go to school for it and choose to do that. I just basically I had no idea what sterile processing was when I first started in it. It was just kind of like I was working at Best Buy and wanted a new job, and one of my friends was working in sterile processing. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. And, you know, when I was first getting educated and stuff, they were always telling me, okay, you're not going to be by yourself probably for the first year, if not more, just because there is so much to learn. You're not going to learn everything in a day, and things are changing all the time. And, I still learn new things every other day, if not every day. And if you just keep your mind open and you welcome change, that's going to be one of the biggest things too, because it's definitely an ever changing industry. And, you could be doing something one way for 4 years and then all of a sudden be like, ooh, what if I did it this way? And then it's like, you cut off 5 seconds or something and you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner? Kind of thing.
Those aha moments.
Yeah, it's kind of silly, I guess, but at the same time, it's just fun.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Brianna, I appreciate you so much taking the time out and talking to me as a student, letting me reach out to you. I appreciate it so much. You have no idea.
Yes, you're very welcome. I'm glad I could help.